Hi, it's Lara here with your weekly Witchy Wednesday astrology forecast for the week of February 13th to 19th, 2019. And I have a lot to talk to you about today, so I'm not going to ramble on too much at the beginning here, except to say thank you so much for being here, as always. I so appreciate you, and I really, really am grateful for your interactions and subscribing to the channel and leaving comments and all of that. So I appreciate that. And also, you know where to find me. If you're interested in having a reading, then just you know, check out my website and the link is always below here and you can reach me that way. So we have today, as I'm recording this video, that Mars conjunct Uranus that I spoke about briefly last week, but at length the week before is happening. It's exact, right? And the reason I spoke about it at length a couple of weeks ago, because I wanted to prepare you for this energy. And so you may be feeling it. If you want to know more about, if you want to know more details, then listen to that video from 2 weeks ago. And I believe I even spoke to each of the signs in terms of where this was happening for you. But just in general, today Mars is conjuncting Uranus at the last degree of Aries. The last degree of Aries. There's a lot happening at the end and beginnings of signs this week, right? So endings, beginnings, not just this week, but this has been sort of a theme playing out for us. And I'll just address briefly here, with Mars conjuncting Aries, right? Mars conjuncting Uranus in Aries, meeting up right beside each other at 29 degrees. We can have this impulsive urge to break free from our routines, to liberate ourselves, right? From our limitations and our boundaries, kind of thing. And so this is really good energy for following your inspiration and your instincts. But it's caution, a note of caution, not to be overly impulsive, not to be overly risky, and to watch your temper. And I needed to take my own advice in that department. Today, this, I just want to share this with you because I always want to be honest, and I want to show you that even though you can be very aware of the energies playing out, of course it's always better to be aware. Sometimes, things just get the better of you for whatever reason, and you operate on the shadow end of whatever that energy is, right? Because if you've ever had a reading with me, you've heard me say there is always a higher vibrational quality and a lower vibrational quality to the planets, to the energies in general. And so Mars can conjunct Uranus can have us, make us a bit hot-headed. And so I have a teenager in the house, and to make a long story short, if you are the parent of a teenager or have been, sometimes it can get a bit frustrating. And so, I had a momentary loss of temper earlier today, and I really hate it when that happens. I really don't feel good about it. Who does, right? When you snap and you lose your patience. But I just want to share that with you because it's real life. And even if I was aware that there was a potential for this happening, I mentioned this to my husband the other day, to my father-in-law. We were having a conversation, and yet, there it was. Now, I've also been feeling rather inspired and that kind of thing as well. So that's been really good on the positive end of things, and that's mostly how it's been. But there has been this element of kind of frustration, and so that came to a bit of a head today. Anyway, hopefully that's not been the case for you. But we have the moon in Gemini today, right? So there may be this sense of having a very active mind, a lot of communication going on, socializing. It's a good time to socialize with the moon in Gemini. There can be, we can have a lot of curiosity about things, a lot of conversation. And then the moon's moving into Cancer on Friday, Leo on Sunday, and then on Tuesday it moves into Virgo when we have a big full moon in Virgo. And I'm going to address that at greater length in this video, and I'm going to talk to what area of life this is happening in for each of you, each sign. But tomorrow, so we've got the Mars Uranus conjunction happening exact today. Then tomorrow we have Mars moving out of Aries and entering Taurus, and that's going to be there until March 31st. And I want to actually show you, I have two charts to show you today, just very briefly. I'm going to show you the chart for today, and then I'm going to show you the one later on in the video for the full moon in Virgo. And there's a reason for that. But so take a look at this chart for today, and I'll just point out a few things. Most notably, there is Uranus and Mars at 29 degrees of Aries, right? In a conjunction at the very last degree of Aries. Then we've got Chiron at the very last degree of Pisces. I'm going to address that in a minute as well. Neptune hanging out in Pisces still, for which seems like forever. It's in there for a long time. Mercury has moved into Pisces now too. We have the sun in Aquarius right now, but later in the week, the sun is entering Pisces and saying bye-bye to Aquarius. We've got this energy in Capricorn, including Venus, which I'm going to speak to a little bit later. And there's Jupiter in Sagittarius, right? And of course the North Node in Cancer and the South Node in Capricorn. And currently the moon's in Gemini. So that's the chart for today. So I mentioned to you already the Mars-Uranus conjunction, and then that Mars is entering Taurus tomorrow. So, and that's going to be, Mars will be in Taurus until the 31st of March. So collectively, it's like we can kind of take a deep breath and kind of calm the hell down for a while. You know, just because Mars and Taurus is not so driven like it is in Aries, its home sign. It is, it plods along, it gets the work done, it keeps moving towards the goal, but it's slow and steady, it wins the race in Taurus, right? It doesn't mean we stop working towards our goals and our desires. It's just that we become sort of more determined in our approach and less aggressive. It also makes us quite determined, you know, to stand our ground. Taurus is a fixed earth sign symbolized by the bull, right? And so this can have us like defending our territory, literally territory, earth, or material things. Taurus is very attached to material things. But it can also be, you know, defending our opinion, defending our position, our stance, any causes that we feel strongly about. Defending our actions even, potentially. But ultimately, you know, don't be too stubborn about it. It can, you know, Taurus can have that really sort of, I'm not changing my mind vibe to it. But in due time, you know, take your time. Slow and steady wins the race with Mars and Taurus. And then on Monday, the sun is entering Pisces, right? Moving out of Aquarius and entering Pisces. So happy birthday, Pisces sun signs. That includes me. I'm born in March 7th. I'm a Pisces. So Pisces energy in general is kind of tuned into the ethers, right? So to a higher purpose, to the unseen world. Pisces knows intuitively that everything is connected and that we are all in this together and that there is more to it than what meets the eye, right? More to it, more to life than this material plane. So Pisces energy is very insightful, it's very creative, it's highly intuitive and highly sensitive. And because it's so sensitive, it likes to escape the harsh realities of life when things just feel like it's just too much to take, right? There's so many feels, can't take it anymore, and so I need to escape. And that's okay as long as it's done in a healthy way, right? Oftentimes, like the best way to harness that is through art, creativity, spirituality, you know, just zoning out, daydreaming, using your imagination, that kind of thing. You know, listening to music, watching live music, getting sort of lost in that kind of thing. Then on the shadow side, it can be escaping through bad habits, through addictions, right? Which is not optimal, obviously. in general, when the sun's in Pisces, we can feel more compassionate towards our fellow humans, more altruistic, more empathetic. We can spend more time sort of dreaming, overdoing, and then on the shadow side here, there's a tendency for Pisces, when it's operating on that lower vibration, to play the victim, to feel like life is being done to you, and that you're just being, dragged around in the current, and you don't really have a choice of what direction. But it's like you have no control, right? So the key is to go with the flow, but to realize that you have the power to swim in another direction if you don't like where things are taking you. You are not a victim of external forces. You have the power and the ability to change direction and to be the hero, right, rather than the victim of your own life. So that's Sun in Pisces. And the other thing that's happening on Monday that's really significant is Chiron moving into Aries. So this is significant for a number of reasons. So right now, Chiron is at 29 degrees of Aries, right? That's the last degree of the zodiac, period. It is the last degree of the last sign of the zodiac. So this is an end of an 8-year cycle because Chiron was in Pisces for the last 8 years, since 2011. So if you look back to 2011 and you think about any themes that have played out for you since then in regards to healing and wounding in particular, you can see, what that may have looked like for you. But it's also the end of a larger 50-year cycle because Chiron is returning to the place that it was 50 years ago, right? It will return to 0 degrees Aries, which is where it was 50 years ago. So Pisces is the final ending, and Aries is the beginning of all possibilities. So it's that first breath of life. It's the newborn coming out of the birth canal, right? And being separate from the mother for the first time. That is 0 degrees Aries. And with Chiron and Pisces over the last 8 years, the focus was on healing, our spirituality in some way. Because with Chiron and Pisces, there's this feeling of being lost, of being plagued with self-doubt, feeling like, what's the purpose? What's the meaning? Again, feeling out of control, feeling like the victim, lack of direction. It can be like a crisis of faith or an existential crisis with Chiron and Aries. So the focus, like I said, has been on spiritual healing and gaining this sense that we are here for a higher purpose, right? And that we are all, in fact, connected and all in this together. And so that's what Chiron and Pisces has been about for us. And we're at the very end of this cycle. And so there may be some salt being poured in the wound right now for that final purging of that energy and the final kind of clearing and healing of that. It can be a sensitive time. But the theme of Chiron in Aries, right? Chiron's shifting into Aries on Thursday, or on the 18th, rather, Monday. So the theme will be healing our identity. And I did a whole separate video on this on my channel. I'll put the link to it below. If you haven't watched it yet, you may be interested. I did 2 separate videos, actually, one just on Chiron in general, and then one on Chiron in Aries, moving into Aries, that transit. So I'll put the link to that video below. And I'm also going to put the link to an article that I read recently from Astro-Butterfly, from that website. It's a really good article on the Chiron return, and there are some good articles on Chiron there in general. So the theme of Chiron and Aries is about healing our identity, and this will be the theme for the next 8 to 9 years as Chiron transits through Aries. Chiron spends an uneven amount of time in each sign because of its kind of wonky orbit. And it spends the longest amount of time in Pisces and Aries. So we are in this real time of deep, profound healing. So under this influence of Chiron and Aries, we are going to be encouraged to fully grasp the idea that healing ourselves is priority one. It's the most important job any of us has to do. Because when we heal ourselves and our own wounding, then we can give the world the best version of ourselves, right? We can be our whole selves. We can show up as ourselves in the world, as our best, most optimal selves. And this benefits, of course, not only ourselves, but our families, our communities, the greater good, right? It benefits the whole society, the whole world, the whole human family. And so there's no more important job than this, really. So if you were born between April 1968 and May 1976, or October 1976 and March 1977, and the reason for that gap is because Chiron retrogrades, right? But if you were born between those times, your natal Chiron is in Aries, meaning that Chiron was in Aries when you were born. So you're going to be experience your Chiron return over the next 8 to 9 years, because you're going to be turning 50, right? Which I am turning in a few weeks' time. So the Chiron return is a time of profound healing potential, or midlife crisis. We get to choose. And I speak to this in that video that I did, so you can watch that if you like. But it's significant, right? And this shift is significant for all of us, really. All right, so I'm going to move on now to start talking about the full moon that's happening in Virgo, and that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of the video. And I want to show you the chart for that full moon before I get into the rest of it here. And if I can find the chart for the full moon, I will show it to you gladly. Where did I put it? Apologies. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the second take of this video today, because the video cut off the first time. But here's the full moon chart, right? For the full moon that's happening in Virgo on Tuesday, the 19th of February, 2019. So the full moon is happening at 10:54 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's happening at 0 degrees of Virgo, meaning the moon will be at 0 degrees of Virgo, and the sun will be opposite at 0 degrees Pisces, because a full moon is always sun opposite moon, right? See, I spoke to endings and beginnings, 29 degrees and 0 degrees, right? So here's 0 and 0. We will still have Uranus at 29 Aries, because it takes a longer to move than Mars, and Mars will have shifted into Taurus by then. And Chiron will have shifted into Aries, 0 degrees Aries by then, right? Of course, Mercury is still in Pisces. The sun will have shifted, obviously, into Pisces. And then I spoke to you about how Venus will be kind of stuck there for a minute, right between Pluto and Saturn. And I'm going to address that as well in relation to the full moon. So that's the chart for the full moon on Monday, the 19th. No, Tuesday the 19th. I'm sorry. So first of all, let me say that this full moon in Virgo will have a particular impact, or maybe like a stronger, it will be felt more apparently, let's put it that way, by people that have personal planets, so your sun, moon, rising sign, or a group of planets at approximately 25 to 30 degrees of the fixed signs. So those are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And also anybody that has, sun, moon, rising, other personal planets from about 0 degrees to 5 degrees of the mutable signs. So Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Now, the full moon is going to be felt by all of us on some level, but it will be felt most notably by those folks. So again, all full moons are moon opposite sun, right? And so this calls to our attention the need for balance of opposing forces. Because they happen in opposite signs. But these opposite signs have a theme that run through both of them. They're like opposite sides of the same coin. So in general, right, it speaks to a need for balance of those two areas, but it illuminates the house that the full moon is happening in. So full moons in general, they also shine a light on our emotions and on our intuition, sometimes on our fears as well. Can be a bit of a time of crisis during a full moon, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Sometimes a crisis calls our attention to something that needs to be attended to, right? Full moons are a time of illumination, a time of things coming to fruition, a time of culmination. And so this full moon is happening on the Virgo Pisces axis. It's happening in the sign of Virgo, like I said. And so this is the axis of healing, because Pisces and Virgo energy both have a healing quality to them. Pisces is more practical. Sorry, no. Virgo is more practical. Pisces is more magical. So I refer to this as the axis of practical magic, but it has this healing quality. So, that whatever culmination or illumination is happening, it may have some kind of healing angle to it. This is a chance to purify some area of our lives, right? Virgo is all about discernment and purification and just getting things just, right at the finest detail. So it's a chance to clean up our environment, right? So that optimal healing can take place, so that we can be more efficient in this area of our lives. The moon is happening in trine to that Mars conjunct Uranus that I spoke to. And so this is actually quite positive. It's a positive energy for getting things done, especially when it comes to our health and healing and purification, to doing research and looking at the fine details, doing the detail work. Virgo is the fixer of the zodiac. And it really, as I said, wants to make everything just so. It strives for perfection, right? Virgo, which can be a blessing and a curse. Anybody with a lot of Virgo energy is aware of this. So look to the house that this full moon sits for you to see where you're being encouraged to clean up your act, really. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but where you're being encouraged to fix something, to shine a light on something, in your own life. And with Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, in Pisces, right? So it's Mercury is the ruler of this full moon, and it's in Pisces right now, which I spoke to in last week's video, if you're interested. The direction can be a little unclear, a little fuzzy. And so it's really important to let our intuition lead the way, right? Let our intuition guide us with Mercury and Pisces. And then just lastly, before I speak to each of the signs, I mentioned to you that Venus is temporarily stuck between Saturn and Pluto right now in Capricorn. And so we may sense this stuckness happening in terms of relationships and resources, most notably. And, just be aware that this too shall pass, right? If you're feeling like that, and the full moon in Virgo may help you release that, cleaning the slate. And that is sort of the theme of this full moon, right? As I see it. So let's get to the signs and do the full moon through the signs. So I'm going to speak to each of the signs. Rising sign, first and foremost. If you don't know what your rising sign is, you can find that out by drawing up a chart online. There are different sites that allow you to do that. Or if you've had a reading with me, you will have that information, or perhaps with another astrologer as well. But so this is where purification and practicality are being called for, right? In order to liberate ourselves from the past and begin a new cycle. So whatever area of the chart this full moon is happening for each of us. That's what's going on. So I've decided here to start with Virgo because I have been for the last little while, starting with Aries every time. And I feel like I'm doing some of you a disservice that way. It doesn't feel, oddly, it does not feel natural, intuitively natural to me to do it that way. It feels natural to do it, to begin with whatever, um, sign is experiencing this in the first house, whatever energy I happen to be talking about. So to the beautiful human Janine, who always puts the timestamps in for me. I hope this isn't going to mess you up. I don't think it will, but I hope it's not going to. So please let me know if that's the case. So let's begin with Virgo, right? Again, Virgo rising, Virgo sun, and Virgo moon as well can listen to this for information. So Virgo, this is happening on your relationship axis. And so it's the full moon specifically is happening in your first house, right? Opposite the seventh. The first house is the house of self. The seventh house is the house of the other. Ultimately, Virgo, this is about your relationship to yourself, essentially. This full moon, it's welcome news, I believe, as a Virgo rising myself, because I feel like Virgo has been feeling weighted down by some baggage these last few days, months, years, kind of thing. And so this full moon is a chance to put that baggage down, right? To let it go, to wipe the slate clean and prepare for a fresh new cycle. Especially when it comes to your vitality, to your physical health, your appearance, your approach to the world, right? Your instinctual response to things, the first impression that you make. The first house it's like our first conscious awareness of the self. It is our individual identity. That's what it speaks to, separate from the mother, right? The first house is the natural house of Aries. And Aries is concerned with the self first and foremost, with getting its own needs met, really. That's Aries energy. And so this is a clue for Virgo. It's a time to really clean up your life. And I'm speaking to myself here too, Virgo. So that our needs can best be met, right? Again, this is the axis of self versus other. So some balance needs to happen there. And by doing this, we can show up as our true, pure selves in the world, right? Our whole individuated selves. We can show up like that in the world. So something may come to the culmination point in that area now. And something that popped into my head when I was thinking about this, just because sometimes I like to give just like a practical example. Maybe you have this like sudden urge for a total makeover. So great, but don't do anything too hastily, right? Mars conjunct Uranus. Do your research like a good Virgo and prepare the soil, right? First. And clean the slate. And then you can step into that fresh, new, pure version of yourself, if that makes sense. So that's for you, Virgo. Virgo rising, Virgo sun, Virgo moon. And next is Leo. Leo, this is happening in your second house, this full moon. So opposite the eighth house, right? This is the axis of form, the second house, the material world, versus transformation, right? The breaking down of that to turn it into something new. So the full moon is here in the second house, Leo, to help you wipe the slate clean in terms of your resources, of what you value, of what you place your worth on, and of your self-worth as well, right? I see the second house as also our self-worth. This is about how we use our skills and talents, Leo, to survive, right? So a big culmination may be happening in relation to those areas for you at this time of the full moon. And the balance to be sought for you is between your resources, right? And those you share. So this is about surviving on our own versus merging with another to transform and to thrive rather than just survive, if that makes sense to you. So, moving on to Cancer. Cancer, this is happening in your third house, opposite the ninth. So, this is the axis of the mind, of communication. Those two things are obviously linked, right? So, this is like curiosity and logic, that's the third house, versus seeking higher knowledge and meaning, which is the ninth house. In the third house, we gather information, right? And exchange information. In the ninth house, we use that information for the sake of making meaning. So the third house is kind of like information for the sake of it. Ninth house is information in order to make meaning. So the full moon is illuminating the need for cleaning something up in terms of your mind and how you communicate, Cancer. So, and this could be particularly with siblings, with cousins, with peers. It could be that you literally need to be more efficient in those areas, right? Efficiency is a Virgo quality. So more efficient in those communications. Or it could be also, Cancer, that maybe it's your self-talk that's in need of some healing or some fixing. Something may reach a kind of a crisis or a culminating point in this area, in this third house area for you. And that's good because it gives you a chance to look with a discerning eye there, and to tweak and fix and heal whatever needs to be tweaked or fixed or healed in that area of your life, Cancer, and to wipe the slate clean there. So Gemini, moving on to you now. This is happening in your fourth house, the full moon, opposite the 10th house. So this is the axis of the private versus the public. It's the axis of our attachments, that's the fourth house, versus our achievements, that's the 10th house. So the emphasis for you, Gemini, is on that fourth house of home and family and emotional security and a sense of nurturing, right? A relationship to the mother or a mother figure. So Gemini, consider what is being illuminated for you in that area around the time of the full moon. How can you wipe the slate clean or refresh and heal that area of life? By focusing on the details and being meticulous like a Virgo there, right? This could even be about literally like your place of living as well, and being meticulous and doing a real thorough purging and cleaning there. It's possible that it could be that. But regardless, something may be illuminated in that area, right? That fourth house area for you. And again, that's good because it gives you a chance to take care of that and to wipe the slate clean and begin anew there. All right, Taurus, this is happening in your fifth house, opposite the 11th. So this is the axis of the personal versus the impersonal. This is about our ego. That's the fifth house, right? Versus the sort of observer or the collective. Seeing things from our own vantage point versus seeing things from the vantage point of the whole or the collective. So the full moon for you, Taurus, is shining a light on your creative self-expression, right? The fifth house areas, how you have fun, how you gather joy in your life. It has to do with our children and children we're connected to, and also our inner child. So something is culminating here for you, Taurus, or there may be some realization that something needs to be taken care of here in order to move to the next level, in order to level up in this fifth house. So it could be, you're putting some finishing touches, that's very Virgoan, on a creative project in order to launch it. Maybe you're coming to the realization that, you need to tweak things in terms of, your kids, something regarding your children, your parenting, or children that you are associated with in some way. it could also be, maybe you've been planning something fun and now is the time that it comes to fruition, and that it's a really healing experience for you, or a very purifying experience in some way as well. So that's for you, Taurus. And moving on to Aries now. Aries, this full moon is happening in your 6th house, opposite the 12th. So this is on the axis of service. This is our day-to-day reality versus our spiritual life, right? It's like what's right in front of us, that's the 6th house, versus what's unseen, that's the 12th house. And so the emphasis, Aries, for you is on your daily affairs, your day-to-day routine, your health and wellness, how you're of service to others. Our unpaid work falls in this category as well. So Virgo is comfortable in the 6th house. It's at home in the 6th house, Aries. And it can be a really good time to wipe the slate clean, in terms of your routines. It can be a good time to tweak your health habits, to take care of the little details and the finishing touches here in this area of life, to embark on a fresh start once all those little details are taken care of, right? It's like polishing the silver. That's an analogy that came to mind here, Aries. So Aries, that's for you. I hope that's helpful. And I'm going to move on to Pisces now. And Pisces, this full moon is happening for you in the 7th house of relationships, on specifically one-to-one personal relationships, right? So this is the axis of the self versus the other. So it's the same as it is for Virgo, only it's the opposite. So for you, it's, the emphasis is on the house of one-to-one relationships, the 7th house. And this full moon is illuminating the balance required there, right? Between our relationship to ourself versus the relationship we have to significant others. And that can be business partners too. It can be any kind of close personal relationship. It also includes the relationship that we have with rivals as well. So, what needs to be cleaned up in the relationship area of your life, Pisces? What needs to be tweaked and purged and decluttered there, for you, in order for you to move forward, kind of unencumbered by the baggage, right, that you've been carrying around? How can you purify your existing relationships for the good of yourself and the good of the other, right, involved, kind of thing? So that's food for thought for you during this full moon, Pisces, and I hope that's helpful. Moving on to Aquarius. Aquarius, this full moon is happening in your 8th house, opposite the 2nd house. So this is transformation versus, formation. So for you, this is the emphasis is on the 8th house of transformation, shared resources, and intimacy. So Aquarius, think about what feels like it needs to be cleaned up in that area of life. And this can even be your deep psyche, right? Those things that we bury down, hidden in our deep psyche, that we don't necessarily want to face or want other people to know. What needs to be cleaned up there? It could be that you're in need of some purification, some healing in regards to your shared resources, right? And your intimate connections. So money that you share with others. And this can include things like taxes and loans and insurance payments and that kind of thing. It could be, Aquarius, that there's some hidden knowledge that needs to come to the surface to be purged right now. And, on a very practical level, maybe there's some kind of a debt that needs to be paid off to wipe the slate clean and to allow you to move forward feeling, lighter and more stable and secure. Particularly in terms of your resources, but also on a deep kind of emotional level as well. All right, moving on to Capricorn. Capricorn, this is happening for you in your 9th house. And so, again, this is the axis of the mind and communications, right? The 9th house versus the 3rd house. For you, Capricorn, the emphasis is on the higher meaning, right? So information that helps us discern higher meaning. The full moon is shining a light on the meaning that you make in life. So Capricorn, where do your beliefs and your worldview and your philosophy and your kind of higher knowledge, even your relationships with teaching and learning, right? And even travel of the long distance variety, usually. Where does something in that area of life need to be polished or fixed or examined with a keen eye? This could be something like even a trip coming to fruition and it feeling healing on some level. It could be seeing the need to shift your perspective in order to allow for a fresh start and wipe the slate clean there in terms of how you view things, your worldview. It could be a culmination of an educational program, even. So, maybe you're putting the finishing touches on some final projects that you need to hand in, that kind of thing. So that's for you, Capricorn. And Sagittarius, I'm moving on to you now. And Sag, I just have to take a quick sip here. Sorry, dry throat. Sag, this is happening in your 10th house, opposite the 4th house. So this is the axis of public versus private, right? Of our achievements, that's the 10th house, versus our attachments, that's the 4th house. So for you, Sag, the emphasis is on the public life, on your highest ambitions, your career goals, your achievements, your reputation, your status, also your relationship to authority. So this, light of the full moon is shining on your public reputation, on your relationship to authority, all those things I just mentioned, your outward achievements. Is something coming to light here, or is there some culmination happening? This could be something like a public appointment, or even a change in your status, like your public sort of persona or status or title, due to some kind of achievement or some kind of relationship change, even, or a career change, something like that. So essentially, Sagittarius, the Virgo full moon is here to heal that area of your life, right? In some way. So take the medicine being offered here, Sag. Clean up any messes that are in need of being purged in that 10th house area so that you can wipe the slate clean and have a fresh start there. Okay, moving on to Scorpio. Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your 11th house, opposite the 5th house. So this is the axis of the collective versus the individual, right? The impersonal versus the personal. Our ego versus the observer. And for you, the emphasis is on the impersonal, the collective. So consider, Scorpio, is there something that needs tweaking or healing or purifying or illuminating in regards to your friendship groups or any kind of groups or associations or organizations or networks that you are involved in? The collective in general, right? Do you need to put sort of the final shine on your vision for the future, which is also what this house is about? And that would often has to do with like the larger group. So this is about you being more the observer than the center of attention right now, Scorpio. It's about you detaching emotionally in order to benefit the greater good and by extension, yourself, right? It's about getting your need for recognition met through allowing the group to shine, right? Whoever the group is in this case. So your role in a group setting, Scorpio, may be the focus of this full moon for you in some way. All right, so hopefully that's helpful. And I'm moving on to Libra. So Libra, last but not least in this case, this full moon is happening for you in the 12th house, right? So it's this axis of the 12th house versus the 6th house, the axis of service. So the spiritual versus the day-to-day, what's unseen versus what's right in front of us, right, in our day-to-day world. So you may just, in a very simple way, feel that there is an imbalance, the daily grind, is taking over your need for rest and repose. Maybe there needs to be some balance happening there. But the full moon can feel like a really deep internal release for you, Libra. It has that potential, kind of like a spiritual catharsis of sorts. In the 12th house, we kind of come to terms with our past, right? And it's a very karmic house. We come to terms with our past and we either move on to the next level. The 12th house is the end, it's the last house. So it's the end of the cycle. So we move on to the next level and we level up, or we allow it to unravel us, right? So the emphasis for you, Libra, is on the unseen world, the world of your unconscious. The gifts you have that you may not recognize, or the ways potentially in which you sabotage yourself, right? Through escapist tendencies can be highlighted here as well, or unhealthy coping mechanisms. So, this can have to do with how you rest and relax. It can have to do with your need for solitude and reflection. Something is being illuminated in that area for you. There may be some kind of crisis of spirituality or a karmic reckoning or reset that happens. And that doesn't have to be scary. Like I said, this can be sort of a really major kind of internal release for you. So the Virgo full moon, Libra, it offers you an opportunity to take care of that area of your life, right? And to purify and to purge and to do the work to clean it up ultimately. And if you do that, then there can be this feeling of spiritual healing. That's the reward for that. So that's for you. And thank you so much to all of you. That's all 12 signs. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, comments, anything, then please let me know in the comments below. And I will catch you all next week. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.